Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. The topic this time is the forecast calls for clouds ethically embracing new technology. This webinar is hosted by the ABA Legal Technology Resource Center, and speaking today will be Matt Spiegel from MyCase. The Legal Technology Resource Center is an ABA member benefit provided by the ABA Law Practice Division. You can find a variety of legal technology articles, guides, videos, and other resources on our website at lawtechnology.org or our blog, lawtechnologytoday.org. Also be sure to check out the new ABA Legal Technology Buyer's Guide at buyersguide.americanbar.org. As the Vice President of Product Management, Matt Spiegel leads the product strategy for MyCase, the web-based legal practice management software. He studies the market, talks with customers, and works closely with the engineering team to create industry-leading software. Previously, Matt worked as a criminal defense attorney at San Diego's largest consumer law firm for 4 years before starting his own practice in 2009. In 2010, Matt founded MyCase as a direct result of his experience managing a quickly growing practice. Prior to the acquisition, Matt was the CEO of MyCase. Thank you all for joining us. We'll now begin the webinar.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are. My name is Matt Spiegel. I appreciate the introduction. This is the forecast calls for clouds. We'll spend a little bit of time here talking about the cloud and a little bit of background on what the cloud is, and then really get into some of the ethics behind it. And the way I really break it down is to give everybody some real good questions to just go and ask as you look to move your practice to the cloud, which inevitably most people are going to be doing. So to jump right in here, this is me. To give you a little bit of background on myself, I know you got a little bit of a bio already. I am an attorney. I am also an entrepreneur. You can see here I traded in my suit, which I would wear every day as a criminal defense attorney, for sneakers and jeans and Nerf Dart Wars. So this is a pretty good indication of what life is like at a tech startup. We like to work really hard, and we also like to have a lot of fun. I like to lead with that, just to give everybody an idea of a little bit about me and what I do. I typically will go into a pretty good detail about what the cloud is. I've cut it out a little bit here from my normal presentation just to accommodate for our time, but I definitely do want to spend a few minutes discussing what the cloud is and a little bit of an overview on it. For those of you that don't know, I feel most people at this point do understand what the cloud is, but there's a lot of noise around the cloud, and sometimes the basic message of what it is can get a little bit clouded, for no pun intended. It's a very simple concept, and I don't like to see it made very complicated, very difficult to understand, and so I have a very easy way of kind of making it to its core what it really is, and as simple as it really should be. The cloud is basically, this is a great example of what the cloud is. The cloud is this: downloading information all over the world, not a CD, installing a system onto your computer. Everybody's familiar with taking a CD, getting Microsoft Office or any of the other hundreds of thousands of software companies out there, and putting the CD into your computer and then installing it onto your system so that you're running it locally. That is not what the cloud is. The cloud is the opposite. The cloud is having that same software, the same capability, but accessing it from a website instead of accessing it from a compact disk that you install onto your computer. The cool thing about this is almost everybody is probably using the cloud already, and you might not even know it. And here's some really great examples of how you're using the cloud right now in your everyday computing tasks, in situations that you might not necessarily associate it with the cloud. The cloud is really this buzzword that has just kind of come about in the last 5-6 years. And so this is a good example of how you're using it, and you may not even know it. So Microsoft Word. Instead of Microsoft Word, we're looking at Google Docs. Instead of a hard drive, for those of you that don't know, that item, second one down on the left, that's actually a hard drive. And that is where you store information. So now instead of that, you want to switch to Dropbox or Flickr. So Dropbox and Flickr are ways to store data. Instead of storing them on your hard drive, you're storing them online. You're accessing them from online. And then the little thing on the bottom left there, that's a DVD player. And for those of you that remember what that is, they're not all that frequently used anymore. They are still around a little bit, but most people are now switching over to using iTunes or Netflix. Again, this is accessing the same data, the same content, the same program, just accessing it through the internet instead of off your local machine. So the cloud is essentially the internet. That's what the cloud is. The cloud is just this idea that the World Wide Web has provided us this incredible wealth of information and the ability to access data from all over the world and access servers that don't have to be in our actual office. But really what the cloud has done is it's enabled SaaS, what you're looking at on the screen right now, which is software as a service. So the cloud has been used as leverage to really change the entire software industry. If you rewind, 15 years ago, the World Wide Web was just information. You would just go on the web to access information. Now, what the cloud has been able to do, what all these virtual servers, the ability to gain access to computing power very easily and virtually, has really given rise to SaaS, to software as a service. And this is what is really valuable. This, when you hear the cloud, this is really kind of what it is. This is the core. This is what's making it so valuable to organizations like small and mid-sized law firms and all the way up to enterprise businesses. It's this idea that now our software that we're used to having to install in our system, we can now access the same software, not just data, not just information, but the actual software, the capability of software as a service on the web. SaaS is really a simple change in delivery method. Instead of getting your software delivered on a CD, you're getting your software delivered on a server through the internet. Some other real typical trends with SaaS is it's a monthly subscription usually for SaaS versus a large purchase. So typically with legacy software, you're spending a lot of money once a year, a couple $1,000, something like Time Matters, for example, right? You are spending a lot of money to get Time Matters, you install it onto your system, and then if they come out with an update, you're forced to purchase that again, and it can be quite expensive. With SaaS, you're really looking at a monthly subscription fee. You're really paying month by month, and each month you pay a little bit of a subscription fee, just like you would if you were subscribing to a magazine. So SaaS is really leveraging the cloud to change an entire industry. And it has changed the software industry completely already. As lawyers, we are a little bit behind the times. We are definitely a little bit slower when it comes to adopting technology, and there are some good reasons for that. But for the most part, we are very slow, and we are catching up here. But we're catching up very, very fast. My guess is everyone who's attending this webinar right now has heard the cloud, is probably using the cloud in some way in their practice, or they're looking to move their practice to the cloud in some way. They understand the capability of it and the importance of it, and that it's a complete game changer. It provides access to so much more for firms that ordinarily wouldn't have the means or the resources to access these types of software. And if there's not enough proof that this is the trend about where we're going, that SaaS, that software as a service, the cloud, is the future, or really is now, I ask you to look at any of the new Apple computers that are coming out, or many of the new PCs that are coming out. Most of them don't even have a CD drive. So if that's not an indication of where we're going, then I'm not sure what is. So it's time to switch over and talk about the ethics of the cloud. This is a really important topic. Obviously, as lawyers, we have to think very long and hard about the different systems that we use and security of them and the ethical implications of using certain systems to store important client data and documents and all the different things that come along with the case. There's a lot of noise in this area as well. And I mean, for obvious reasons, I'm a big proponent of the cloud. But I believe I'm a proponent of the cloud for factual reasons. I don't believe I'm a proponent of the cloud just because I have a business in the cloud. I believe it is the right thing. I believe it is very secure. And I believe with just a little bit of homework on your end, that you can live up to every one of your ethical responsibilities when it comes to protecting client information and data. So what I like to start off with, because there are a lot of them, is don't listen to the fearmongers. There are so many people out there, and some of them have high positions of influence at state bar associations, and they are fearmongers. They don't understand what the cloud is. They don't understand the technology behind the cloud, behind software as a service, and all the engineering and programming that goes into it. They are fearmongers, and they like to scare a lot of people into thinking that the cloud is not necessarily a safe place to be. I'm here to tell you to please not listen to them. A quote that I really love is, "Fear is easily spread amongst the ignorant." It's very easy for you to get informed and do your homework. And as long as you do that, you're going to be covered. You don't need to be losing sleep at night wondering whether the NSA is going to eavesdrop into your data, or someone's going to hack into your system and steal everything in there. I'll explain to you why I don't think you need to do that, but just to kind of set the tone for where I'm going with some of these ethical considerations is, I think you just need to do a little bit of homework and ask yourself some questions, and you will be very well protected. So the way that I really like to break down my ethical discussion here is to look at it as 4 questions, okay? 4 questions that you can ask, not yourself, but really the cloud provider. So when you go out and you start looking to move your practice to the cloud, you're going to be speaking with different software companies. You're going to be speaking with different providers. And you're going to have an opportunity, at least you should. If you don't have an opportunity to ask them these questions, then that's your first sign that you should get out. But you are going to have the opportunity to ask most cloud providers these questions. So the first question is, where is my data being stored? The second question is, who has access to my data? The third question is, how do I get my data out? And the fourth question, which is a very technical question, is, how is the data encrypted? These are my 4 core ethical consideration questions. We're going to go through each one. We're going to talk about what answers you're really looking for to these questions. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some ancillary ethical considerations after we go through these questions. But for the most part, this is the core here. This is what I believe is the most important aspects of ethics when it comes to cloud computing and what you need to be concerned about. I also want to point out there is a great resource. The ABA actually has a great resource. It's a list of all the states that have kind of made decisions on cloud computing. It's whether they've said it's okay, and then it's what sort of standard they require from you. Every state that has ruled on it has said it's okay, and every state that has ruled on it has said that you need to use a reasonableness standard. So you need to take reasonable steps to ensure that your client's data is protected, and that's what this is. What these 4 questions do, and making sure you get the right answers to them, is ensure that you are putting your reasonable step forward. You are being reasonable about protecting your client's data. This is all you have to do. So where is my data being stored? This is very, very important, and it's something that you don't necessarily always think about. Where are the servers located? So we touched on this when we talked about security. We didn't because I cut my presentation short, but the heart of this question is actually about ethics and your ability to maintain confidentiality for your clients. Now, I want to take one step back from the ethics requirement here, and this is a great spot to point out some of what I mean about why I think the fearmongers spread a little bit too much fear and some things they don't understand. Is that if any of you have a server in your law firm, you may understand this. And if you don't, you can certainly conceptualize it. But imagine the server in your office. Now, your office probably has a front door, and then maybe there's another door to get into the room where your server is. But that's it. Your server is sitting there. It is infinitely more easy for someone to break into your law firm and steal that server than it is for them to get into a cloud provider system. Just to give you an example, Amazon Web Services, which host a lot of cloud providers' servers, those servers are behind, I think it's 4 feet of steel and concrete. There's one entrance. It's guarded by 2 armed guards, and there's a retina scan in order to get in. So unless you can provide that level of security around your servers, then they're more secure with a cloud provider than they are in your office. And you get scared of hacking, but I can tell you right now that the most common cause of data breach is from your laptop getting stolen or losing one of those thumb drives. That is how you lose your data. It's not from people hacking you. So you might be scared of the cloud, but what you're doing right now is infinitely less secure than what you could be in the cloud. So going back to this question of where my data is being stored and where the servers are located, this is an ethical consideration because it has to do with like the jurisdiction. Let's say we put a document onto a cloud provider. If that server is stored outside the United States, let's say in Russia or India or England, wherever, that document is now subject to the jurisdiction of that particular country. That's not to say that anything is going to happen, but it could, and that would obviously be a very big problem. So it's very important. The answer that you want to this question is you want your data to be stored in the United States. It's very important to note this. And it's usually a very easy question to have answered by any reputable cloud provider. Our second question, who has access to my data? Really, really, really important for obvious reasons. Now, this is typically something that is found in the terms of service or a privacy policy, so you can read through that and usually get the answer to this question. You could also just talk to the cloud provider and ask them who has access to their data. But here's the key. It should only be 1 or 2 key employees. There can be an engineering team of 100 engineers at a cloud provider, and all those engineers are writing code to make the software better. But only 1 or 2 key employees should actually have access to the data. All engineers to write code and to do things, they don't need to have access to the database. That's not a requirement for engineers to write code. Only 1 or 2 key employees should have access, and a lot of times they should only really have access to encrypted data. And there should be checks and balances in order to use a particular key if necessary to decrypt it, which is obviously necessary once it gets to the client, the host computer, to display it on your screen. But nobody on the server side should have access to the database. So most cloud providers will actually have a separate company that an Amazon or a Rackspace where the servers are actually hosted. And even though those servers are hosted with another company and the cloud provider is paying for use of those servers, that third party should absolutely not have access to the data in that server. This is a no-brainer. If they do indicate that someone has access to it, then I would avoid that company. This is a non-negotiable. And you're going to want to make sure that it's just a couple of key employees at the office. And those key employees should also be under some sort of a contract with the cloud provider, with their employer, a privacy policy, just sort of contractual precautions to keep them from leaking any data or doing anything that they shouldn't be doing, unethical with the data. So very important question to ask, who has access to my data? And again, you can see I think you can understand the answer that you're trying to derive from asking this question. Our next really important question is, how do I get my data out? Now, the answer to this one, I like to say, the answer should be simple. It should be easily. You own your data. The cloud provider does not own your data and should never be telling you that they own your data. This is your data and you own it, and you need to know that you own it. And because you own it, you should be able to get it whenever you want. And if you look at the bottom there, I say this should be easy as a click, and that's what I mean. When I say easily, it should be very, very simple. And obviously there are some programs you might have to make a couple clicks, but it's just to kind of reiterate the point that it should just be very easy. It shouldn't be a complicated process to go get your data out. You shouldn't have to call the company and have some expert on the line send you your data because they don't allow you to just get it out of the system. You should be able to do it yourself, and it should be very easy. But here's something very important to note. You should be able to get your data out in a non-proprietary format. And what that means is that you can go use it, right? The problem is that if you don't get your data out in a non-proprietary format, for example, anybody who knows the old QuickBooks system or using Microsoft Money and trying to reconcile your bank account, you can export data in certain formats, right? QuickBooks format or Microsoft Money format. That's great if you're just going between those two programs, but that's not the world that we live in anymore. You might want to get your data out and you want to go into 5 different cloud providers. You want to test them all out with all your data. A non-proprietary format is the only thing that's going to allow you to do that. And an example of a non-proprietary format, which most companies will use, is CSV. That stands for comma separated values, and it's basically an Excel spreadsheet. That's what that is. A CSV document will be opened in Microsoft Excel or any other spreadsheet program. This is just really important to note. A lot of people don't think about this, and it is very important because if you get your data out of QuickBooks in QuickBooks format, that's great. It doesn't do you any good if you go to a different provider. The information is basically useless. So it needs to be a non-proprietary format. It's a very important question, and again, I think it's very easy to get the answer. A lot of times this you don't need. This is almost more of a feature this day and age, and you should be able to find a help article from the cloud provider or something of the sort to give you an indication of how easy it is to get the data, and also what data you're going to get. You should be able to get every piece of data from your system. There shouldn't be anything that you're really leaving behind. Okay, perhaps the most important of the questions is, how is my data encrypted? Now, this is a completely technical question, and the answer is completely technical. And you don't have to understand the nuances of what the answer is. I just think you need to get this answer. And to be honest with you, this could change. I could do the same presentation in a year, and the gold standard might be different. But what I'm showing you here is kind of the gold standard for encryption right now. What you're looking for is end-to-end bank-grade encryption. Okay. What I mean by end-to-end is, I mean that the second that you're typing on your cloud provider and you're putting in client's contact information and then you hit save. The second that you do that, it is being sent to the server and then it stays on the server. And then when you go click on that client's name to look at their information, it's pulling that information off the server and sending it back to your computer. The second you hit save, the data should be encrypted as it is being sent to the server. Once it's on the server, it should be encrypted. And then when it's sent back from the server to your computer or whatever device you're using to access it, it should be sent encrypted. It means it is encrypted from end to end. The whole way it's encrypted. What that means is if someone was to intercept that transmission, they would see encrypted data. They wouldn't see raw data. So this is what you're looking for. You're looking for 128-bit, and this is actually a typo, I apologize, 128-bit SSL encryption on transfer to and from the server. And you're looking for 256-bit AES encryption on storage. So there are two different types. 128-bit SSL is on transfer to the server, and then when it's sent from the server back to your client computer. And 256-bit AES is when it's being stored. That's the answer you're looking for. That's sort of the standard for most cloud providers. There are some, to be honest with you, I think there are greater levels of encryption. This is bank-grade encryption. This is what you really need right now. And again, I anticipate that this will probably change over the next couple of years, and we'll get better encryption, easier encryption, and some of these terms will change. But bottom line is you want end-to-end bank-grade encryption, and these are some of the answers that you can go out right now and look for. Okay, so some ancillary issues that I really like to discuss. Email. Email is a really big ethical consideration. And I will tell you right now, email should not be used for communication that is confidential in nature. Every single one of you is communicating with your clients via email right now. Almost all of you are not going to stop, but all of you should think about it. Okay? If you don't understand why, just turn on any news channel and you'll see all the talk about emails being hacked and data being hacked. Email doesn't necessarily follow those same 4 questions that I just proposed to you. Email doesn't guarantee. If you go use Gmail right now, Gmail is coming out with some new encryption tools, which would help with this. But Gmail doesn't guarantee you where that email, when you send an email, it's not necessarily only in the United States. That might pass through servers all over the world. And along that way, anybody can intercept it. And if it's not encrypted, then anybody can read it. A good analogy is emails are as confidential and secure as a postcard written in pencil. You send that postcard off, and anyone who touches that postcard along the way can erase something and rewrite something else. And it may not happen to you. You've sent thousands of emails to your clients, and you haven't had to worry yet. But it could. And it only takes one time to really have a huge nightmare of a problem on your hands. So I encourage everybody to rethink email. And there are a lot of alternatives out there. There are a lot of communication portals, a lot of other things that you can do to message with your clients and communicate with your clients in a way that will be infinitely more secure than using, Outlook or Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo or any of the big email providers. So a few more really important things as you, again, really look to move your practice to the cloud that I think are imperative for you to think about. Checking into the business. Okay, you are going to make a big investment in this provider. You are going to be committing a lot of data to them. You're going to get, you're going to learn their software. You're going to really spend a lot of time and invest a lot of money into making this decision and having it work for your firm. You need to know that that company is going to be there. The thing about cloud providers is most of them are startups. And as a startup, it's volatile. Okay? So a lot of startups, they're there one day and then they're gone the next. So you want to make sure that this company has long-term viability. Now that can mean a couple different things, right? That could mean that they're funded, that they've got very good venture backing, okay, with healthy fundraising rounds. Maybe their first, second, third, typically referred to as Series A, Series B, Series C rounds. You look at one in the news, Clio, big competitor of ours, obviously, just did a big Series C fundraising. This is indicative of a company that is stable and has enough power to be around, and someone that you could probably invest in. The other alternative is to see whether a company has been acquired by a bigger company that's obviously very healthy and is a staple, is not going anywhere. That's the case for us. We were acquired by a company that is very stable, and so we don't have to ever worry about just not being there 1 week. So those are the two kind of scenarios, right? Is you've got massive funding, or you've been acquired by a company that is a big company that has been around for a long time and is sustainable. You can get answers to these questions. They're not unreasonable to ask. If you call a cloud provider and you say, hey, I'm concerned about your viability. If I invest a lot of time and money into you, how do I know you're going to be there tomorrow? And these are the kind of answers you're going to get. They might not tell you how much money they've raised. They don't always have to disclose that. But they might tell you that, yes, we're funded. They're not going to give you their numbers, but they'll give you these ideas that we've been funded. We've been acquired by this company. You want to get that warm and fuzzy. You just want to get a little bit here to make sure that you're making the right decision. The EULA is actually important. Don't just click agree. We all do it. We all just click the box that says we agree because we think it's all boilerplate. But we're lawyers. Maybe we tend to read a little bit more of the small print than most people do. But I would encourage you to spend time actually reading them when you're looking at your cloud provider. Don't just click agree. EULA stands for, by the way, the End User License Agreement. The terms of service, privacy policy, these are all those items. And it's a good thing to read through. It's a good thing to just kind of understand Again, a lot of the answers to the questions that I told you to ask might be in this document, so you might not have to call the provider and ask them. But I do encourage you to have a conversation. I think it's a little bit more personal, and I think that people at the cloud provider will be happy to answer these questions for you, and they'll feel good that you're doing your homework as well. And they should feel good about answering those questions because they should have good answers to those questions. Another really good thing to think about is how would the company handle a subpoena? And obviously, having a startup in the legal space, having a practice management software company in the legal space, we get this a lot. Lawyers actually calling to ask this question. My guess is there are other providers that don't get it as frequently. But this is a good one to ask. You can call them up and you can say, how would you handle a subpoena? And the answer you really kind of want to hear, or that you're going to get, is we're going to evaluate each subpoena on its face. And we're going to comply with the law. We're certainly not going to break the law. But we are going to look to notify our customer in every possible way unless it conflicts with the law. So unless we receive a subpoena that has a no notice requirement, then we are going to immediately reach out to our customers and we're going to let them know that we received a subpoena and the data that they're looking for. So the transparency is really important here, and I think is kind of what you're looking for. And really just the fact that the company has thought about it. You want to make sure that they've at least thought about the possibility of receiving a subpoena and what would happen in that situation. If they haven't, then it likely means that they're not necessarily savvy enough for you to be trusting your data to. So moving to the cloud, it can be a very daunting thing. I encourage you to just don't jump in head first. It's a really good idea to keep your old system around for a little while. There are certain things that you shouldn't migrate, right? Like don't migrate all of your time entries, right? There's no need to bring over all of your old time entries if you're a type of firm that uses time entry billing. Keep your old system around for that. Don't just jump in head first. Try everything. There are tons of trial offers out there. Almost every cloud provider allows you to just quickly sign up for a trial and try as many as you can before making a decision. For each type of software, for practice management, for research, for whatever it is, there's plenty of options out there, and each one's going to provide a little bit of a different experience and some different features, and one might be good for you and not be good for the next person. So I really encourage you to just go out there and utilize these trial offers and try as much as you can. Definitely keep your old system around as a reference point. It's very silly to try to migrate everything into a new system and just pick up where you left off. So to sum it up, the cloud is everywhere, and you probably use it every day, even if you don't know it. And the cloud is not going anywhere. This is where we're at. We are not going to revert back to a legacy-based CD install society. We will continue to access more and more of our software on the web. It can significantly change your life and also affect your bottom line. It can give you the freedom, the cloud, it doesn't matter where you are. As long as you have an internet connection, you're going to access your data. It could just be on the phone. Most companies have, cloud providers have multiple apps for you to use. And so you could be on vacation and you can access your firm and take care of an emergency that comes up without having to worry about getting into your system remotely or virtually. And it can affect your bottom line because it is cheaper. No IT costs. For any of you that have a server out there, you know how expensive it is to maintain that server, and you probably need to hire an IT person to come in. With the cloud, IT people are, for the most part, obsolete. And that's a lot of the fearmongers, and I don't mean to paint a very broad brush, but a lot of the fearmongers are IT people, and it's because the cloud is going to essentially put them out of business. There's just no need for it. It's very easy. You don't need to do any of the heavy lifting with servers or security. And it can be used perfectly ethically. You just need to ask yourself those 4 questions and then some of the other considerations that I gave you, and you will be using the reasonableness standard that is required of you. So thank you. I appreciate your time, and I know we will open it up for questions. I'm happy to answer anything.